Welcome back to the Mental Playbook with Christine Dalgity, Season 2. This season, we are expanding the conversation, hearing from mental health experts, professionals from different industries, and people in the sports world about how they take care of their minds, handle challenges, and build the mindset to thrive both on the job and in life. So, grab a coffee, get comfy, tune in, get inspired, and let's dive into some fascinating conversations. Remember, your mind is super powerful, and with the right tools and knowledge, you can master your mental playbook. And while you're doing that, take care of you. Hey everyone, Christine here, and welcome back to the Mental Playbook with Christine Dalgity, a place where we dive into real-life challenges about mental health, one play at a time. And today, that's Burnout Carryover. If you're tuning in for the first time or you're a regular, I'm glad that you're joining me. So grab a coffee and get comfy, plug in when you're going for a walk, tune in when you're driving to work. Let's get real about how last year's stress might still be hanging on this year and how you can break free from that cycle. So what exactly is burnout carryover? It's a term I use when last year's stress or even last month's stress seems to stick with us long past its best before date. It's when last year's exhaustion and overwhelm from past pressures don't vanish when the calendar flips. And instead, they follow us, affecting our energy, our mood, and even our relationships. And let's be honest, adult life can feel like an endless game of catch-up. Am I right? Burnout isn't just feeling tired at the end of the week. I think that every adult feels tired at the end of the week. And as parents, right? Parents, by the end of the week, we're drained. And that's normal. That's appropriate. That's standard. We live busy lives. Burnout is a deeper sense of physical, emotional, and mental depletion that doesn't go away with a good night's sleep or a weekend off. When we talk about carryover, we're highlighting the stress that accumulates from month to month or over from year to year, and it seems to snowball. So sometimes, like I said, it could snowball year after year. Even though, this is a new year and we're talking about burnout carryover for the year, I want people to be aware that it could just be from month to month as well. And, sometimes I reflect on how I experience some of these things. And I think it's important, and some of our viewers who are also clients of mine have told me that they like that part when I reflect on some things, personal stuff, because I'm a real person. And sometimes I think there's this misconception that therapists have it all together, psychotherapists have it all together. And because we're trained to not disclose and have we're these beings that are neutral. And that's changing over the years. More therapists disclose in a thoughtful way. But I think that it's nice to know that your therapist goes through a lot of the same things that you do. And so, my story is more of a year-to-year thing. And it's funny because November 1st, I had our family Thanksgiving, and because in Canada it's in October, but my family is very busy, and we couldn't seem to get together, so I had it on November 1st. And that night, after my Blue Jays lost the World Series in Game 7, and I dried my tears and collected myself, I started thinking about the day and how awesome it was. I was kind of flitting around because I hosted it and was cooking stuff, and my sister was like, "Are you going to sit down?" And I did, and I was looking around, and I was listening to my grandchildren and my cousin's grandchildren belly laughing, head back, and screaming, screaming, but joyful screaming, and just playing. And I watched my grandson curl up on my sister and my granddaughter too, and then my granddaughter came over to me, and she had discovered ketchup chips, and she thought they were amazing. And she said, "Grandma, you have to try these." And I did. And I hate ketchup chips, but I did anyway. And I was thinking about all of that, and my cousins and my siblings and my kid and my daughter-in-law. And I was like, I started to think about, burnout and burnout carryover and the last few years, how I talk to clients about doing this, and I do put in self-care, but at the end of, 2023 is probably when it started, when my dad got sick, and I just was running a business and a psychotherapist and caring for my dad, and I just kept going. And then when he died on Boxing Day of 2023, which I've mentioned a few times, when I get the courage to do traumatic grief and talk about it, I will. I'm just not there yet. But it was the worst day of my life to date. And that winter was probably the worst winter of my life to date. I was in a really dark place, but I didn't tell anybody. And I just kept going and pushing through and running a business and seeing clients. And it's not like I, have sunshine and rainbows job. And I just kept, helping other people and pushing through. And probably for the first 5 months. And then I came out of it a little bit. And I had some changes, and physical changes and emotional changes, and saw a therapist. And I thought, okay, I got this. But I just kept pushing and pushing and throwing myself into work. And then, the fall came along, and I was going out all the time with my friends, and I thought, oh, I'm living life. No, I was escaping. And I just kept going and going, and opened myself up a little bit to things that I hadn't in years, and got hurt and started, trying to process it, and threw myself into work, thinking that I was rocking it, right? And no, I'm just building my business. And then I started doing the social media stuff, and this has been so much fun, but also a lot of work. And that's just the way it is. Anyway, so 2025 rolls around, and that's when I started doing the social media. And I was still trying to process all these emotions that I hadn't experienced in a long time, and the confusion about people's behaviors and things that I was going through and why, and threw myself into social media. And then in the spring, again, things happened emotionally, and I was like, and even though I do these podcasts and I talk all the time about self-care, and I do try to implement self-care, I get into these times, right? I think they're times, but reflecting on November 1st, I was like, I have been doing this for 2 years almost, pushing myself, the chronic stress, and just continuing it. And so, in the fall, working so hard and going away on weekends, and not, I just said, lying in bed after the Blue Jays game, I was like, stop. This has to stop. And thinking about, reflecting on my family being here and the joy that it brought me, because I slowed down and I just was mindful in those moments. And that's what I need to focus on. And I'd let my working out and eating healthy go because I was too busy to meal prep, and I was too busy or too tired to get up in the morning and go and work out. I was up, but I was like, oh no, I should be doing some work. So I think that with burnout carryover, I'm not going to carry it over into 2026. I'm not going to carry it over into this year, right? November 1st, I made changes and start focusing on me and what I want to do. And yes, all of this is part of it, and my business and my career is part of it. But I slowed down, and I started focusing on me and what matters to me. I did a podcast on look at your calendar. Find the 5 things that bring fire to your life and that you really enjoy, and look at the calendar and how many of those things are on it. And yes, I actually did have some things on it. I did have, Sens games that I go to. Bills games that I watch, and I, had Blue Jays games on there. I had some social gatherings, but that was about it. And so I'm adding more in now. And sometimes what brings me joy, what brings me fire, is just cooking or baking or doing my crafts. Sitting with a friend, it doesn't have to be a big social gathering, and just chatting. So we all experience this burnout carryover, I think, from time to time. And as a therapist, I can tell you that, how carpenters, their house is the last one to be renovated, and plumbers have leaky pipes. Sometimes we joke about that. Therapists can get caught up in this stuff too, right? And when we experience things that we're not used to experiencing, we start to feel emotions that maybe we're not used to feeling or experiencing. And because we're therapists, we should just know what to do. Sometimes we throw ourselves into work and other things as well. So just a little bit to say that, if this sounds familiar, I'm human too. And if it sounds familiar, you're not alone in that. And I changed it, and you can too. I was losing the ability to actually enjoy and be mindful of things that brought me so much joy. And I'm glad we had a late Thanksgiving dinner, and I could really look at that and think about the last 2 years. All right, so enough about me. Why does the stress linger? I get that question a lot too. And actually, when I was reflecting, I was thinking, like, why? Actually, I said, why did I allow the stress to linger, right? And then I started thinking about why the stress lingers. And our bodies and minds aren't as good at resetting as we'd like them to be. Your body and your mind gets into a pattern to what it's familiar of, and your brain is designed to protect us, right? And so, but its protection is doing what it knows what to do and keeping you in that pattern. So even if it's chaos, that's what it knows. And sometimes when you start to feel better, it tries to create the chaos. But chronic stress actually changes the way we think and feel. It can lead to persistent fatigue, irritability, and even physical symptoms like headaches, indigestion, IBS type symptoms, muscle tension. It can lead to all of that too. I'm also telling you that so you can reflect in how you're feeling physically. Some people find themselves snapping at their kids or their partners or maybe even coworkers over small things, or just feeling unusually anxious about routine tasks. The psychological impact of chronic stress can actually impact how, our concentration, our focus, forgetting things, feeling numb, and or detached from things, and even questioning our sense of purpose. And I want to add in there too that because I know that this is often overlooked for women 40 plus, but perimenopause also causes all of these things. And so when you're bringing chronic stress and you're going through perimenopause, it can be really overwhelming. And I think that that's something we need to really reflect on too, is separating, okay, maybe not even separating, just seeing like, okay, this is chronic stress, this is perimenopause. How can I navigate both of these? And I think that even though perimenopause causes some of these, if you can lower, I know because I'm doing it myself, if you can lower that stress, it's also going to impact some of the perimenopausal symptoms that we experience. On the physical side, lingering stress can mess with your sleep, your appetite, your immune system. So you may find yourself catching more colds or feeling aches and pains that you didn't usually feel, and that doesn't pair with any obvious cases. I know that a lot of people say, and it happened to me in education too, I got sick every Christmas break, every March break, and at the beginning of every summer. because, and so do a lot of my colleagues, and a lot of my clients talk about it too, because I finally slowed down, right? And all of a sudden, like the stress leading up to those things cause these physical symptoms, and I would get a cold or often strep throat for some reason, or pneumonia, susceptible to that. So that would come. And of course, Christmas, March break, when you get a break, right? So a lot of that is happening, and it's your body saying, I need a break. For me, as soon as I took the break is when I got sick. But I think it's because all systems go. I could have been getting sick before that, but again, you're go, 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 right? And it probably just came in at that time. So, how do you recognize burnout signs? How do you know if you're dealing with burnout carryover? So, I've talked in other podcasts about burnout itself. Burnout carryover, as I said, is like from month to month. It just seems to snowball, or year to year, carrying it over from 2025 to now 2026. So, here are some signs I want you to watch for. Constant fatigue, even after you rest. So you've had a weekend that you don't have to do much, you're resting, and you're still exhausted. You've had good night's sleep, 10 hours sleep, let's say, and it's just, you're fatigued. Not just tired, you're fatigued. It's constant. You're always feeling like you're dragging yourself. You're dreading daily tasks, even the small ones. And I know that in the fall, the last week of October, I remember coming into work, and I love my job. I love my job. And I came into work and I said to my sister, who has Dalgity Resilience beside us, I said, I was actually getting up this morning saying, I just need to take this week off. Obviously, I couldn't. I had clients booked, but it's that, I was dreading just daily little tasks, not just like working, but daily tasks. It just seemed like one more thing I had to do. So if you're dreading those tasks, even small things, keep that in mind. Feeling irritable or hopeless. If you're really irritated at everything, when I talk about the stress response, I talk about emotional dysregulation, and irritability is the first thing that we feel. I kind of describe it to clients like all your nerves are on the outside and people just keep brushing up against them, right? And there was one time I remember it was a Friday, and we used to order in, my brother and my niece and I, and my brother was he was eating a Caesar salad. But I'd had a lot of trauma clients that day, and so I guess just the stress and stuff, and I didn't realize. Plus, it had been a really busy week. We were sitting at either end of the table, and he's eating the salad, and I was like ready to just rip the salad away from him because it sounded like he had a megaphone when he was chewing. He was eating salad. Like, it wasn't like he was eating Miss Vicky's chips or something, right? And then he hit a crouton. I was like, nope, can't do this. And then I had to I just went to the washroom, pretended I was going to the washroom, but I had to decompress. And I was like, okay, Christine, what is going on right now? And it wasn't my brother eating a salad. I was just really irritable because that is the part of the stress response. And when I kind of slowed it down and was like, okay, you had this, this, and this today, do some breathing, do some grounding. And I came back out and I couldn't even hear him chewing. So irritability, people just keep getting there. Or bigger than that, this feeling of hopelessness. You're feeling hopeless. That can really move into depression then. So reflect on that. You have difficulty concentrating or remembering things. So the stress response shuts off your prefrontal cortex and your frontal lobe. And within there is, the hippocampus. Cortisol impacts your hippocampus. And if your prefrontal cortex is not activated, then concentrating and focusing, processing is impacted. So chronic stress, the stress response, if it comes in once, that's going to happen. But if this is like constant, that's probably I'm not saying I know there's medical things that can happen, but if you reflect and you're like, oh yeah, I have not slowed down. This is getting to me. I have all these, you know, responsibilities and everything, then your prefrontal cortex is probably not activating. That is the stress response. Physical symptoms like headaches, stomach issues, or muscle tension. Again, within the stress response, your blood pressure, your heart beats faster, your blood pressure increases, your muscles tense up, they start contracting to make you appear bigger, to get you ready to fight back or run away, to hide. Digestive system says, your brain says, I don't need to digest food right now. I need to get rid of anything that's in me because I need to focus on the muscles in your arms and your legs to protect yourself or get away, to fight or get away, fight or flight. And with the muscle tension too, you can get headaches. Most people say that tension headache up the back of your neck. The stomach issues is the digestive system shutting down. So your stomach relaxes. So you feel nauseous because your brain actually wants you to be sick, right? It wants you to vomit because it wants you to get rid of everything. Most of us feel nauseous. Your bladder's not working, so we have to go to the bathroom more. And your bowels aren't, they're relaxed as well. And so then we have symptoms of like IBS, irritable bowel syndrome. And because it's trying to get rid of everything. So if you are having a lot of those, I've had clients who had trauma or chronic stress and lost so much weight because they couldn't have normal bowel movements or anything. And once they started to feel better, it stopped. So yeah, look for those too. You may find that you're withdrawing from family, friends, or activities that you once enjoyed. So when things that you used to enjoy feel like a task, feel like it's something else you have to do, you lose interest in those things, that's a really big sign that, that's a sign of depression too. But chronic stress, because when our brains get overwhelmed, it shuts down. It doesn't want to do anything else. And often what happens though is it filters out the things that bring us joy, the self-care type things too. And maybe you don't want to be around family or friends. You just retreat, right? The stress response, fight or flight or freeze. And so flight with mental health issues, flight obviously physically is like you run, you hide, you get away. Flight with mental health issues is isolating yourself, withdrawing, not participating, and freeze is part of this difficulty concentrating and remembering things too. Freeze is when your brain just feels like fight or flight is impossible or dangerous to do, unsafe, maybe not dangerous, unsafe to do. And so you may be going to talk to someone about something and you lose what you're saying in the mid-sentence, or you can't formulate things. That's part of freeze. So if this list sounds familiar to you, don't worry. I don't want you to worry. You're not failing, okay? You're experiencing something that's human, and self-awareness is the first step towards changing that. Chronic stress for adults is not rare. And I think that every adult will experience it sometime in their adult life, especially in today's society. But recognizing it, I always say, always, in every podcast, I think, but I always say, acknowledge it, name it, explain it to yourself, reflect on it, right? We can't just keep pushing things down. Like I did on November 1st. I started, I was up very late because after the game, right? And I was like, okay. And I was making this plan for myself, but I acknowledged it. This is what's going on. And this is what I've been doing for 2 years. And I named it. I named exactly what it was. And then I explained it to myself. It's because of. And then I said, how am I going to change it? So that's the first step. And then we're going to move to, how are you going to change it? So how are we going to break that cycle? So Let's get to the good stuff then. How do we break the burnout cycle? I have some simple, practical strategies here, and I am going to read some of them because I can't remember all of them off the top of my head. These are ones, though, that I do talk to clients about, and these are things that, when I did my reflection, that I've incorporated into my life as well. So the first thing we're going to do, and if you're a client of mine or you follow me, you know that I love this. We're going to set boundaries, right? We're going to learn to say no without guilt. We're going to limit overtime at work, social commitments, or even screen time if it feels overwhelming. I am not telling you to withdraw from things. I'm telling you to set those boundaries and limit them. September and October for me were like every single weekend I had something social or I was out of town, and my list of things to do kept piling up. And that exacerbated my chronic stress, because all I could see was all the stuff I had to do that I felt like I had zero time to get done. So I've limited my social commitments. Screen time. If you get lost mindless scrolling and then all of a sudden 2 hours have gone by and you have a list of stuff to do, set those boundaries for others and for yourself. Schedule rest like it's an appointment. I've said many times that when we schedule, so in the podcast with owning your time, I say schedule leisure activities, schedule rest times, schedule downtime into your calendar. We are creatures of routine. And I've had clients say to me, if I know that I have an appointment with you or I have a doctor's appointment or something, I can get up and be there for 9 o'clock. If I say to myself, oh, because it's in my calendar, it's in my schedule. If I say to myself, oh, I think I'm going to get up and do this tomorrow, I don't get up, right? So if it's in your schedule, if it's in your calendar, we often will follow it. You also have to change your narrative about it and look at it like it's an appointment, not just schedule it like it's an appointment. It's something that you're going to do. Treating downtime as a non-negotiable. And I have said in other podcasts, downtime doesn't necessarily mean couch potato, right? Downtime can be going for a hike. Downtime can be, going in the boat at the cottage if you're fixing the cottage up for the fall or whatever, getting it ready for summer. Downtime can be anything you want it to be that isn't work related, responsibility related, something you have to do. Okay. So many times clients say to me, no, I can't just lie around. Then don't. It doesn't have to be lying around. I want to clarify that. I hear that all the time. Block out time for things that you actually enjoy. So reading, walking, whatever fills your cup, whatever fills your bucket, right? We often talk in therapy about filling your bucket with things that bring you joy, not with stressful things. So fill your bucket. The third one is declutter your mind. That one's big for me. Because not only does my mind go 100 miles an hour all the time, sometimes, I have to journal just to organize the thoughts. I also think some ADHD plays a part in that too, but I have to journal it. I have to write things down in my notes app, or I like to handwrite things. I have to do that to declutter my mind because there's so much in there at any given moment. So try journaling or note taking. Write out your worries or to-dos so they're not swirling around your head all day. And that's what I do. Even through those 2 years of my chronic stress, that's what I do. The problem is, so what I do is I have my list of things I have to do. And on Sunday each week, I do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Sunday the next day. And I write down things each of those days that I'm going to do so that I don't have a list of 30 things. The problem that was happening before I did my reflection was I was doing these lists But then on Sunday would come around and I'd look at Mondays and I still had like 5 things. And Tuesday I still had 5 things. And so from my list of things to do, and some of them were very easy tasks, but because easy tasks seemed overwhelming, because I was so busy and feeling like there weren't enough hours in the day, I wasn't doing any of the stuff on my list to do. So it's one thing to, make a list so it's not swirling around your head of to-dos and break it down, like I think is key as well. But you can't make your list too overwhelming too. And, if you're putting these things down on your list, you need to take the time to do them and not be just like spiraling all the time. So whether they're swirling around your head or you're on a list in front of you, you need to slow it down. The next thing I want you to do is move your body. Physical activity doesn't necessarily mean running a marathon, right? It means move, be active, go out and walk, clean the house, just move, a walk in the park, stretches. It was telling me to move. And that was perfect timing because as I was saying to move, my watch made that sound that told me to get up and move. Perfect timing. I'm not getting up yet. I actually joke when I'm in session when it goes off. I use that because it goes off at 10:02. So I use that as my cue to wrap up a session. But I joke because I'm like, okay, look at my watch and say, okay, judgy, I sit for a living, right? Because it's telling me I haven't gotten up yet in the hour. Anyway, I get up then because I walk my client out. But just move your body. It can be gentle stretches in your living room that helps reset stress hormones. Doing some yoga with that, the deep breathing, focused, any type of movement. It doesn't have to necessarily be traditional exercise that we call exercise. Again, obviously that plays a part and exercise is important for women in perimenopause. Strength training, low impact strength training is important. All of that is, but just move and dance in your kitchen, dance in your living room, put your favorite music on and just let it all go. Connect with others. So chat with a friend, join a community group, talk to a mental health professional, and, just connect with people. Talking to a mental health professional when things get heavy can be helpful, strategy wise. Mental health professionals are not emotionally invested. So I've said before too, I can have a helicopter view when it comes to clients and I can say, okay, so let's do this and this. If it was, a family member or a friend, I might be like, oh no, like, because I'm emotionally invested, right? So I'm not saying don't talk to family or friends because that has merit too, obviously. But sometimes talking to a mental health professional who's removed from the emotion of situations can just, well, we're also trained in giving these strategies and helping you through it. And just listening without judgment sometimes is really helpful. But connecting with friends, family, community groups, joining things also provides oxytocin. It increases oxytocin in your brain, which gives us purpose and makes us feel bonded. It's a feel-good chemical in your brain. And connection is a lifeline. So find someone you can connect to. Prioritize sleep. Create a calming bedtime routine. So we call that sleep hygiene, right? Have the same routine every night. Make sure it's calming. For most people, I say no screen time right before bed, no heavy thoughts or heavy discussions right before bed. Because if you go to sleep after like an argument or like heavy conversation or really thinking about issues that you've been having, then your brain tries to process that. And if it's something stressful, your amygdala does not allow you to get deep sleep. And dreams can be very vivid or scary, or because your brain processes your thoughts and everything in your sleep, it'll be impacted. So something calming, light, routine every night. So dim the lights, unplug from screen time, maybe try a warm bath or calm music before you go to sleep. Something else that I think is really important when chronic stress too is what we often do is like I said, even routine tasks, any task feels like too much work. So we grab the frozen pizza or we stop at a fast food on the way home from work, or we throw some nacho chips and cheese in the microwave, right? Something that is just really easy, that's what we do. And, growing up, we used to always hear there'd be commercials. I think it was like the participation commercials and stuff, and they'd say, "You are what you eat." And that used to be a running joke, right? Oh, you are what you eat. But it is so true. When I stopped eating as healthy as I was, and just grabbing stuff to eat because I was too busy to meal prep, you feel it. You feel sluggish. You can get more brain fog when you're not eating nutritious food. Obviously, there's weight gain involved in that. That can impact your mental health, cause more stress because then there's something else. Now I have to try to lose weight again. There's all of these things that happen. The nutrient values alone, eating healthy foods, that can help with your chronic stress. So incorporate that into it. I know that we all live busy lives, but I cannot preach on meal prepping enough, especially for people like me that are really busy. When I can get up in the morning and when I'm making my chia seed pudding and stuff, and I just take that out and I eat that for breakfast, and I have my lunch, I just put it in my lunch kit and make my shake. Obviously, I don't have that meal prepped, but to bring to work, and my protein iced coffee that I make, I just throw them in, and then I come home. Sometimes I don't get home from work till 7 or 8:30 at night, and my dinner is already made, and it's healthy and it's nutritious and it has all the macros that I need. That alone is going to take, not even if we're not talking about the nutritious food, that alone is taking the stress away from, now what do I have to eat? Now what do I have to make? Right? So I cannot talk about that enough. And really, I know people say, oh, but Sunday's busy or whatever. It really doesn't, it might take a couple of hours, but there's a couple of hours as opposed to, every morning or night before work, making the meal, then coming home, trying to decide what to eat for dinner and making dinner. Even with families, you can still meal prep. You can make some meals and put them in the freezer or whatever it happens to be. So again, if you follow me, if you know me, you know that I'm all about progress over perfection, right? And all of these strategies don't mean that you have to be perfect at doing them, but doing little bits of these, even doing one or two of these to start, is progress, and progress over perfection. Find what works for you and start small. You don't have to do all of these at once. Find what works for you and start small. I think that part of this is building resilience. Part of chronic stress, part of this burnout carryover, that we just keep carrying over from month to month and year to year. Resilience isn't something that you're born with. It's built bit by bit. And we've talked about, in other podcasts about gentle parenting and that kind of thing. I'm not going into gentle parenting again because I don't want to be canceled. But Lily tells me you're only canceled if you let yourself be. Just kidding. I can have an opinion on gentle parenting or anything that I want to. Resilience, though, means failing from time to time and building yourself back up, right? Resilience means allowing our children to experience failures, because as we get to adulthood, we are going to experience failures. We are going to experience stress and hard times. And so we're not born with it, it's built, and we have to experience these difficult situations and work through them and come out the other side, and that builds resilience. So here's some other ways to build resilience. And this goes into or builds on what I was just talking about. Okay, so for chronic stress, for burnout, and carrying this over into 2026, we're in 2026 now. So start now. Don't carry it over past today if you have carried it over, okay? So practice self-compassion. Treat yourself as kindly as you would a loved one, or somebody that you care about going through a tough time. Parents out there, treat yourself as kindly as you would your child. If your child said some of the things to you that you say to yourself, what would you say to them? I always bring out the kid card when I'm talking to clients that are parents. And then they're always like, oh, that's not fair, Christine. But if your child was saying it to them, what would you say to themselves? What would you say to them? Treat yourself the same way. Reframe setbacks. Okay, so try seeing challenges as opportunities to learn. We learn from our mistakes. I don't think I can say that enough. And I say it all the time. We learn from our mistakes. We have to make mistakes to learn. And that's why I tell parents, you have to let your kids fail. You have to let them make mistakes. You can't buffer it all the time because that's how they learn. We need to look at these opportunities to learn rather than look at them as failures. So reframe times that, setbacks. Celebrate tiny wins. Every step forward counts. Did you drink water today? Did you do some of your breathing? That's a win. And every day, if you build on that, that's going to prevent burnout carryover. It's going to slow down and prevent or minimize chronic stress. Have you journaled if that was an intention that you had? Have you set a boundary? Celebrate every win, big or small. Stay curious. I love that. Because I'm always curious. I'm always trying to learn and figure things out. And, but stay curious about yourself. Ask yourself, what do I need right now? Instead of, what's wrong with me? We often go to the, why did I do that? What's wrong with me? Why can't I? No. What do I need right now? What do I need to change right now? And make routines work for you. So habits like morning stretches, regular meals, even prepping for tomorrow the night before can help with that rush in the morning that, kicks off the stress that's going to be the rest of our day. Yeah, do all of that to anchor your day so that you can get up in the morning, breathe, and that's why I was talking about the meal prep, right? I like to start my mornings, as we know, just having a coffee and reflecting on the day, or just being with the fire on, my fireplace on and stuff. And then, doing my workout and that sort of thing. If I don't meal prep, then I'm spending that time getting all my meals and stuff ready for the day. All of that is going to help you build resilience, right? And building resilience is a journey. It's not just like that. It's a journey. So give yourself permission to take it one play at a time. See how I threw that in there? So I have some Q&As, some questions from that clients have asked. And so I have talked about some of this in here, but just to reiterate. So one of the questions is, how do I know when stress becomes burnout? So, if stress is ongoing, if it starts interfering with your daily life and it's not relieved by taking a break, a weekend, it's veering into burnout territory. So when it's consistent, fatigue, even when you rest, when you don't feel like doing things anymore and you're isolating and small tasks are overwhelming, all of those things I talked about. It's really important to listen to your body. I've said before, your body keeps the score. So when your brain hasn't caught up yet, your body's usually telling you what's going on. So listen to your body and your mind. They're going to send you signals for a reason. Your body and your mind try to protect you. You just have to slow it down and pay attention to them. The next question is it normal for stress to hang around even after a big project ends? Absolutely. Stress isn't just about the workload, it's about the recovery part of it too. So if you are going all in for a long period of time, then you stop. Remember what I said earlier, your brain is trying to protect you. And so when the chaos has stopped, your brain still knows the chaos. It knows that go, go, go with this big project that you've had. So it will create chaos until you use your strategies to slowly bring it down. Sometimes the emotional residue that sticks around needs intentional effort to clear it. So all the strategies I've talked about, you need to retrain your brain again to not be in the chaos. And then it will protect you by being in the calm and before the next chaos or the next big project, right? But you can also utilize strategies, what you've learned from this, to go into the next big project and take those time schedule those rest breaks. The next question, I get this all the time. I actually, this is what I was talking, this was me, right? But what if I'm just too busy to rest? How often have you said that to yourself? I need to rest, but I'm just too busy. I'll do it when this is over. I'm going to take this when, and that's what I was doing this past fall was, okay, I have this and this and this and this weekend, but on this weekend I'm going to rest. But then something came up and I didn't, right? No, you need to incorporate it. We're never too busy to rest. We need to incorporate rest into our day, into our week, into our weekend. We need to prioritize our self-care and our rest. So even if it takes 5 minutes to just breathe, do your deep breathing, to stretch, to step outside for a minute. In the winter, step outside and get that cold to reset your nervous system. All of that counts. If you have a very busy life, which most of you I'm sure do, even busy lives can incorporate creative solutions for downtime and rest. And, sometimes, like I said, when my brother, when he was eating and I went into the washroom just to take that 5 minutes to breathe and reset and say, what is going on, Christine? Right? So 5 minutes is all that it can take. And the busiest person, I am a very busy person, but since I've made this shift, I can do it. So can you. If you're feeling stuck, reach out. There are resources all across Canada, all in wherever you live, there will be resources. There's hotlines. And again, I say this all the time, but in case you haven't watched another podcast, I'm not going to list individual hotlines because it depends on the country, the province, the state, where you live. There's different hotlines. So research that, have it readily available. There's online therapy. A lot of practitioners since the pandemic offer online therapy. There's community centers and support groups. The Canadian Mental Health Association has local programs and a lot of information. There's mindfulness apps like Calm and Headspace that a lot of my clients use. You can talk to your family doctor. You can talk to a psychotherapist. There's a lot of resources out there. And remember, asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's actually a sign of strength to be able to say, I need help with this. show strength. And also know that you're not alone in this. All right. So I hope that you've understood a little bit more, or you understand a little bit more about burnout carryover. What burnout and chronic stress go hand in hand. Burnout is when it's constant. You are physically, emotionally, and mentally exhausted. You don't want to do anything anymore. It's not having a stressful week or stressful day. And carryover means we don't put any strategies in place. We just keep pushing forward. We think we're rocking it because we're still going, but we carry it over into the next year, into the next month, and sometimes it's multiple years. We just keep carrying it over. And burnout carryover, it's real. It's a real thing. Some people say, oh, that's just life. No, it's not just life. I've given you some strategies. It is real, but so is your ability to change it. So thank you for spending time with me on the Mental Playbook with Christine Dalgity. And I hope that you can take, what you've learned and give yourself space, give yourself grace. And remember, every day is a fresh start. This is 2026. And if you have carried over last year's stress, see this today as a fresh start. All right? Take care of you. That's it for today's episode of the Mental Playbook with Christine Dalgity. Remember, the work doesn't end when the episode does. Thank you so much for watching and for being part of these conversations. If you're enjoying the podcast, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. It helps us grow and reach more people who might need this too. And don't forget, take care of you.